As promised a few weeks ago, I've now tried Lurpak Plant-Based Butter for myself, and I'm reviewing it here for the benefit of those of you who might also be considering buying it. I was pleasantly surprised by the rich but understated creamy taste and smooth texture, and the absence of any obvious aftertaste. There was no hint of saltiness, unsurprising considering the relatively low concentration of salt. An objective comparison with dairy butter wasn't really possible because I've been a vegan for years. I have to say though that visually it didn't have the bright golden look of real butter. It was quite a pale colour, and even straight from the fridge it was fairly soft. This did have the advantage of making it very spreadable, even on cold bread, with no hint of tearing. On hot toast and crumpets, especially the latter, it melted quite fast, leaving just a rather oily coating, while on hot fruit loaf it held much longer, especially when spread thickly. Overall, it was rather more reminiscent of margarine than I expected, although the mouthfeel was very pleasant and cool and not at all oily. The packaging followed the general Lurpak theme, but in a distinctive way that instantly labelled it as plant-based. To my mind, it was more attractive than the standard packaging. The pack proudly declares the product to be free from palm oil and is itself clearly recyclable. The main ingredients are rapeseed, coconut and shea oils, followed by water and oat. The latter is highlighted as an allergen due to its gluten content. The ingredients list then includes an unspecified culture, salt at 1.2%, and finally carrot and lemon concentrates. I did try to compare the product nutritionally to dairy butter and vegan margarine by visiting the website Open Food Facts. This gave Lurpak Plant-Based a Nutri-score of D, low nutritional value, and a green score of E, high environmental impact. This was puzzling, as plant-based products are generally much more ecologically sound than dairy ones. Dairy butter has more than double the environmental impact of margarine when it comes to climate change, with some studies showing that it produces 3.5 times more greenhouse gas emissions. Much of the emissions comes from cows' methane burps. Methane is 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at trapping heat. Plant-based products also have lower water and land footprints in general than dairy, although as with emissions there's some overlap between the worst performing plant products and the best performing dairy products. Margarine has been shown to emit 1/6 the amount of carbon dioxide, require up to 50% less energy, and use approximately half the land needed by butter production. But when I looked further into this, I discovered that the apparent contradiction was due to serious limitations in how the scoring systems work. The carbon emission figure comes from ADEME's Agribolized database for the category butter, 82% fat, unsalted. This means the green score system is incorrectly categorizing Lurpak plant-based butter as if it were dairy butter, for environmental impact calculations. The green score was initially developed for France, and it's being extended to other European countries. It's subject to change as it's regularly improved to make it more precise and better suited to each country. But at the moment, the system appears to be using the environmental data for traditional butter 82% fat unsalted, rather than recognising this as a plant-based product with a fundamentally different production process. Plant-based spreads typically have carbon footprints of 3.3 kilograms CO2 equivalent per kilogram, while the Open Food Facts page shows 779 grams CO2 per 100 grams of product, which equals 7.79 kilograms per kilogram. This aligns much more closely with dairy butter emissions, which average 12.1, than with actual plant-based butter emissions. This is a perfect example of why automated environmental scoring systems can be problematic when they rely on broad categorization rather than product-specific life cycle assessments. The actual scientific literature clearly demonstrates that plant-based butters like Lurpak's have significantly lower environmental impacts than dairy butter, but the scoring algorithm hasn't been properly calibrated to distinguish between these very different products. So this is a flaw in the assessment system, not in the environmental benefits of the plant-based product itself. Similarly, the rather low Nutri-score of D is partially due to the inadequacies of the classification system. According to the British Heart Foundation, vegan butter is similar to butter from a nutrition perspective, with around 80 grams of fat per 100 grams, of which approximately 50 grams is saturated. And calorie-wise, there's also very little difference. Lurpak plant-based butter comes in a single package size of 400 grams. It retails for £2.75 in Morrisons, but is advertised at £2.48 in Asda. Regular dairy-based Lurpak, on the other hand, costs £3.75 in Morrisons, £3.50 on Ocado, and £3.34 in Asda. Interestingly, this compares with £1.99 in Aldi for Flora buttery margarine. So it's more economical than dairy butter, but definitely more expensive than margarine. Initially I couldn't find it locally, so I first ordered it online. This was obviously an expensive option at £13.49. Subsequently, I did manage to get it in a nearby Morrisons for just £2.75. This product's great for vegans and lactose intolerant people, but it's unsuitable for celiacs and others with gluten allergies. Overall, I enjoyed the product. It made a very pleasant change, and I would certainly recommend it. But I probably wouldn't switch from vegan margarine on a regular basis because of the significantly greater cost. By the way, I didn't get around to trying Lurpak plant-based butter for baking, but then maybe that's one for another time.